Middle East, Israel and Iran today again exchanging rocket attacks. Israel saying today's strikes targeted Iranian military sites a day after the initial attacks killed several officials involved in Iran's nuclear program. The strikes have world leaders calling for urgent de-escalation tonight. And News Nation correspondent Kelly Meyer is live in Washington with the latest on this. Kelly.
Yeah, hey there, Natasha. So Iran and Israel continuing to exchange fire tonight. A new round of strikes, missile attacks from Iran tonight in Israel after Israel continued their strikes against Iran earlier today. This really happening, these simultaneous attacks, as you said, continuing after those initial strikes, unprecedented attack from Israel on Iran Thursday into Friday, and we've really been continuing ever since. We've been following it all here from the White House, and all of this happening while we were here covering the parade, the Army parade here in Washington, D.C. Sirens were going off across Israel as Iran began their attacks. We are learning that at least one person was killed and over a dozen wounded in western Galilee in another retaliatory attack by Iran against Israel tonight. Iran launching missiles at targets across Israel, including like in the cities of Tel Aviv. And this is a response as Israel kept up their attacks on Iran. Strikes earlier today that they claimed targeted nuclear and military sites. They also killed key leaders in the country's governing theocracy there. President Trump, we know, speaking with Russian President Vladimir Putin today, they both agreed in that phone call that the war between Israel and Iran needs to come to an end. But it's been interesting to follow the comments. President Trump was asked about this at the White House today, but he didn't comment. And tonight was the first time we heard from the president since Israel's strikes on Iran and then Iran's retaliatory strikes. But he didn't really touch on this at all. He stuck to about a 7 to 8 minute speech, stuck to the script, and didn't go off and talk about Israel or Iran at all. We know we were here yesterday as the president was in the Situation Room. We were told he was continuing to monitor the situation, and he's had several phone calls with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, including yesterday as well as Thursday ahead of the strikes. The strikes from Israel on Iran were no surprise to President Trump, though earlier in the week we were told that the president was warning Netanyahu against those strikes because President Trump was wanting to get Israel and Iran to come to the table on that new nuclear agreement. But now President Trump was praising Netanyahu's attack on Iran, calling it excellent and saying that it could push Iran's hand to come to the table on these talks, though Oman saying those planned talks, the 6th round of nuclear talks set for tomorrow, they are off, though I know that Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, he is hoping, along with the team here at the White House, that those talks could still happen. So the U.S. still hopeful about that tonight. Natasha.
Appreciate it. News Nation's Kelly Meyer live at the White House tracking that. Thank you. And for more, we are joined by Major Glenn Ignazio, retired Air Force Special Operations Commander. Major, always good to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Great to see you, Natasha.
And based on what we're seeing right now between Iran and Israel, how would you characterize the military posture of both countries right now? Are we headed to a state of direct war? Are we still operating in a gray zone here?
I think we're operating in a gray zone, but to be more specific, though, I think that Israel is continuing to prosecute, as they said it was going to be a multifaceted, multi-day type of operation. I believe that they're looking, if they don't even have it, I would say that they're looking for the air supremacy over Iran to basically operate in impunity, to be able to strike those targets, both nuclear, and they have really taken out a lot of the leadership of the Iranian military and government. We're actually seeing citizens of Iran videos coming out where they are celebrating these attacks because their government's been oppressive. However, again, we see Iran attacking back to Israel, and Israel's defending as best as possible, but some of those missiles are getting through. So I think this is going to be the way it's going to be for some days until Israel is able to say, hey, we took care of them the way we wanted to.
Do you see any coordination right now between Iran and Russia or China potentially behind the scenes? And what is the risk of this conflict becoming a broader strategic alignment going forward?
Yeah, I think that right now we're not seeing them directly in play in this. In fact, we've heard even Putin saying, hey, I'd mediate something between Israel and Iran, which was surprising considering he's fully engaged in Ukraine. I think that there's definitely the requirement for both China and Russia to stay behind this, stay away from this. And the reason for it is to focus and keep it contained to Iran and Israel as best as you can. I do believe that right now Iran is in a tough spot where they're really going to have to take inventory of what they have. One, from the leadership that was taken out, and two, a lot of their systems and missiles have been destroyed. So they are really trying to figure out what they have to push at Israel. But I don't think a ground war is going to be the case. They're too far away.
And with U.S. assets in the region and ongoing carrier deployments, what is the likelihood that this could pull Washington into any direct confrontation here?
I think that we're definitely in a defensive area. I mean, one of these missiles are flying over territory that U.S. troops are in Iraq and others in Syria. So you have to make sure that you're defending those troops. And we don't know if those missiles are heading for troops until they figure out the trajectory of that warhead. So sometimes we are shooting those missiles down. At the same time, Iran said they would strike the United States, but they've been smart and have stayed completely out of it. I don't see us being any kind of direct offensive operation. That's one of the smart things I believe President Trump has negotiated and played here. But Israel is definitely on the offensive. And as long as we stay defensive in nature for our troops and our interests, we're in a good place. But if we can keep it contained to that area and that area only, that would be the best thing for now.
What are the red lines as you see them for each side right now? Is there any specific action that would trigger a full-scale war here?
Well, I think the idea that they don't have a nuclear weapon is key. As we see it right now, it's an air war where they're being able to take out these sites. Israel has had some just most incredible intelligence and operatives within Iran, being able to carry out some of these operations. And that's one of the things that Israel really understands what the impacts of their strikes are, and battle damage assessment, as you hear that term a lot, is what they're looking at to make sure that they have pushed Iran, not just back today, but many years in developing a weapon. I think the question we got to watch out for Iran is how they strike back. And one of the things that I'm concerned about in the back of my mind is the Straits of Hormuz. That is something that Iran can really strike back to some of the weak points. That's things like that, Israeli ships and so forth. But I don't think that this can get into any further scale than the air war and missile war that we're seeing.
Appreciate it. Major Glenn Ignacio, thank you as always.
You bet. Take care.
And we're close.